So we'll have a little listen to this, right? And what I want to point out is that the video of the Gardaí going around to mosques, refugee centres, and these sorts of places to recruit Muslims explicitly is what it was said in by the Gardaí in the video, right? That it need not be, or it can't be, only Irish men and women in the Gardaí. So we need ye to come in, right? Now, there's one of those kinds of videos and pictures and stuff of the Garda recruitment going to these places circulating for the last year, I'd say, right, at least. And there's been a recent one as well, the one I just referenced there, where the guard was saying it can't be just Irish men and women in the police force and the Gardaí. We need ye to come in, right, so we can tend to all different communities, right? Even though there's no difference between communities, we're told on the surface, right? Everyone is the same. We're all equal, and there is no difference. There's no demonstrative difference between communities. But on the other hand, we also need these different communities to come in and police Ireland because of the different communities, right? So make it at what you will. But what I want to highlight here is the pace at which that video circulated in the last week and it being brought up in the Dáil now. Because what I want to stress is that it appears to me that there's an increase in pressure being put on Micheál Martin and Simon Harris. You can see that with News Talk speaking about Simon Harris, right? There seems to be a bit of a turning. I'm not saying that that's a good thing, or I'm not making any sort of judgment on it, or I'm not making any judgment on those who seem to be pushing the pressure, right? I'm just observing. I'm just making an observation around what's going on, right? So we'll have a little listen. And this is in reference to that video with the Gardaí.
How can you stand over people being taken into the Garda College in Templemore without being vetted? Everyone in this house wants us to get more Gardaí as quickly as we possibly can, get them trained, get them out on the street to increase policing. I mean, that's the whole objective of people going into Templemore. The precise arrangements, I engage with the Minister for Justice. I'll raise the issue that you've raised with me, and I'll ask the Minister.
So two things there. The framing of situations by these politicians, you'll notice that we'll use the Overton window, right? So the idea that if you're looking through a window, you can only see what is beyond or what falls into the frame of the glass, right? You cannot see through the walls on either side. So what these politicians do is they will frame a situation allowing you only to see through their framing the situation as they want you to see it, right? And what is obstructed from that is any other sort of way of alleviating the situation, right? In totality. So Micheál Martin here references the idea that all of the Dáil want more police on the streets, more Gardaí on the streets, and therefore who really cares what way they're put into Templemore is effectively what he's saying, right? But what is not allowed to be discussed is one of the major contributing factors to the need for more Gardaí, which is the importation of people who are culturally different, racially different, and behaviourally different, right? Morally different to the Irish people, right? We're back to that again. Differences between peoples, they exist. They are based firmly in reality, right? Firmly in reality. And another thing as well, the second point, if Micheál Martin had any shred of decency or honour or allegiance to the Irish people, which we know he doesn't. We know he doesn't. It comes out of his mouth from time to time as well, right? He would be able to say categorically, without deferring to the Minister of Justice, that I will not stand over any Gardaí being put onto the streets or put into uniform or put into a position of power over anybody in this country unless they have been absolutely checked, validated as good, honourable people. He should be able to say that unequivocally, but he doesn't.
Minister for Justice
Thank you, Taoiseach.
My honest view, I think vetting is important, but
The
it's
Social Democrats, please. Deputy
What does vetting
Sinead
actually
Gibney,
mean?
Taoiseach,
What does that actually
thank you.
produce?
And there you go. You can see he's breaking down. From my perspective, he's breaking down into, well, what do you mean by vetting, right? This sort of time wasting. We all understand what vetting means, right? Who are you? What are your beliefs? What are your allegiances? We understand the surface presentation you offer us, the persona in psychological terms. We understand that. We can interact with that. We want to see what's behind that, right? We want to see what your shadow is. We want to see the beliefs and allegiances that you hold in private and do not share explicitly during a job interview. That's what we want to see. What choices have you made in your life prior to you arriving in Ireland that would allow us to think that you can be trusted with any sort of power or influence over people on this land? That's what vetting is. Should you even be here, let alone be given a Garda uniform and all of the powers and influence that come with that? So for him to fall back on this linguistic game, right? The semantics of what does vetting even mean, right? What does it produce? Well, number one, automatically, it would stop criminals from getting into positions of power in this country. And he seems to be confused by the idea, right? And it's fascinating to see people like Alan Kelly bring this up, right? An absolute statist, right? A government part of the furniture there, right? And he even had little notes on front of him with the question. So who's giving him this question to ask, right? If it's not coming off the top of his own head or out of his own heart, who's giving him this question to ask? Right? So you're starting to see rumblings and pressure being applied on both sides, right? And I think it's a fascinating thing to see, because Micheál Martin has never been in a position where he's had to operate under pressure, right? He's always had a fall guy to put out in front of him, right? And Simon Harris is probably that, but there's a lot of it falling on Micheál Martin now. And you can see the fibre, the character, the morality of the man when he's posed a simple question. Look, we want the best Gardaí that we possibly can. We don't want anyone corrupt coming in here. We don't want criminals coming in here. We don't want anyone who is from a population or a theological persuasion that allows them to think that they're better than the people they're going to be policing. It's as simple as that. We want Irish people policing Irish people. And if we can't function at that level, then we will get rid of every single hurdle in the way of that. And if that means clearing house to get rid of the amount of crime that's coming into this country, then that's what we'll do. That's what a leader would say. That's what someone who's actually interested in safeguarding the lives of Irish people would say. But he doesn't. He jumps into the semantics game. And you can see what's going on in this Dáil at the moment is absolute stalling tactics. Because I don't believe any of these people know which way the wind is blown in terms of geopolitics. They're hedging. They're trying to stop from hedging their bets too quickly, right? Because they don't know what's going to happen between the EU, between China, between America. They don't know, right? And their allegiance ultimately is with the EU. So we'll see what weight that America throws around. I think they're after bringing out a 25% tariff on the EU, which is great, right? So capture the EU in their own game. They state that they hold nation states in allegiance in terms of making trade deals. They claim they make trade deals as a bloc, right? So let them be judged as a bloc as well. So America have put a 25% tariff on the EU, which is going to make nation states suffer. And it's going to make nation states think, Jesus, you know what? If we could get out of this, we wouldn't have those tariffs, right? We'd be able to make separate and one-to-one negotiation deals with America that might actually benefit our country for once. So look, there's a lot of swirling dust in the air, and I don't think people are able to see clearly, especially the people in the Dáil at the moment, right? So that I think they're trying to stall, draw it out, talk about stupid things, have wars of semantics, just spend hours pointing fingers at people because they haven't a clue what direction. I think whoever's been giving these people direction, I don't think that's there at the moment, because they're either not following it for the sake of trying to sustain and prolong their political careers, or they're not getting it, so they don't know which way to go. Fascinating times.